a little afraid, 'cause love always fooled me before. I'm dreaming dreams, those beautiful dreams that everyone dreams about love. So I'll take a gamble and see what fate has in store. Maybe I'm wrong again, playing with love again.
In March 1920, Gwen Farrar and Nora Blaney were a young couple starting out on a career as music hall entertainers. With Nora at the piano and Gwen on cello, they livened up their double act with singing and banter. They lived together at 217 Kings Road, Chelsea, and in their motorcar they regularly set off on tours to theatres all around the UK.
100 years later, Alison Child and Rosie Wakley have been travelling around promoting Alison's book about Gwen and Nora and organising events in places they lived. They've been to Gwen and Nora's house in Chelsea. They've sung Gwen and Nora's songs on Brighton Pier, and in Effingham, Surrey, and Baildon near Bradford. In Stratford, East London, Ali did a talk for the Black Film Collective.
But in March 2020, all this comes to a sudden end with lockdown.
We're just being a bit sort of, it's such a shame that Cornwall can't take place and all our plans for going to Lesbos have been butchered. It's only March and we don't know how we're going to get through this.
Gwen and Nora survived the Spanish flu outbreak that followed the First World War, but they would soon face other challenges to their survival as a couple. On the 4th of August 1921, the House of Commons voted to outlaw what they called acts of indecency between women. The men of the British establishment were becoming alarmed by what they saw as women's increasingly disturbing behaviour.
We all know that vice has been increasing, partly owing to the nervous conditions following on the war, but I believe that all these unfortunate specimens of humanity exterminate themselves by the usual process.
Other descriptions, such as unbalanced, neurotic, and decadent, were used to describe the perpetrators of an offence which none of the lords could bring themselves to name, and few believed was practised by any but a small, albeit growing, minority. There were rumours that suggested the taint of this noxious and horrible suspicion was on the increase. While men were getting hot under the collar in the Houses of Parliament, all over the country women were independently and discreetly settling down to life after the war, many of them in same-sex partnerships. There was a surplus, as it was unkindly called, of about 2 million women. No doubt some were profoundly unhappy and frustrated by the lack of a husband, but many flourished, both professionally and personally, outside the confines of conventional marriage, in committed and loving female friendships. Fortunately, the idea of making lesbianism punishable by law was rejected by the House of Lords, but only because they feared passing the bill would put ideas in women's heads. By 1924, Gwen and Nora were starring in the West End, singing the popular love songs of the day to each other and making audiences laugh with topical songs. But the two superstars of the day, Gertrude Lawrence and Beatrice Lillie, had made it to Broadway. Recognition in the United States was the next career goal for Blaney and Farrar.
So because it's unlikely we're going to be able to do the live event, I'm trying to put some things together digitally. So I saw your tweets about my talk at the Black Film Collective and I wondered if you'd be prepared to film yourself saying some things about that.
Yeah, I send you the sheet music. Yeah, and you record yourself.
Would you have time to do a couple more of your backing tracks?
Yeah. And one of them is a choir, and one of them is singing the Principal Boys songs that Nora sang in Panto.
So it will be some work recording the narration, voiceover.
You'd be up for it? Brilliant. Thank you.
Oh, excellent.
It would be a complete honour for us if you would do it. You would? Brilliant. Brilliant. Great, thanks. I'll send you the stuff.
Great, really good. Thumbs up with thumbs up.
In 1925, the legendary producer Florence Ziegfeld put Blaney and Farrar in his latest Follies production, paying for their passage across the Atlantic by ocean liner. In New York in the winter of 1925, they visited jazz clubs in Harlem. It was at the height of the famous Harlem Renaissance.
So at the community screening, we learnt about the African American movement, the Harlem Renaissance, and in particular the queer women of that movement. And I just loved learning about Ma Rainey. She was bisexual. She was dubbed the Mother of Blues and was actually mentor to Bessie Smith, who was one of the highest paid performers of the 1920s by the end of the decade. Who else was there?
There was also Gladys Besley. She was famous for her cross-dressing performances and singing with a deep growling voice whilst flirting with women in the audience.
Yeah, I like Gladys. There was also Josephine Baker, who was a French resistance agent, and she was an activist and a performer. The first African-American to be in a motion picture, which was huge at that time, and she had numerous titles like the Creole Goddess and the Black Venus.
There was also Edna Thomas Lewis, and she was an actress. She first appeared as Lady Macbeth in the all-black cast, which was amazing.
Yeah.
And she was also dating Olivia Wyndham. So very interesting ladies. Yeah.
She came to my house and I had the most exciting sex experience of my life. It has gone on for 5 years because it is so very satisfactory. She is one of the finest women I have ever known. She has come to be very, very dear to me, not just for sex alone. It's just a very great love. She is tender and gentle as I have never known anyone else to be.
Life for Gwen and Nora was not so harmonious. Nora's parents were hoping their only child would soon settle down to conventional married life with a suitable husband. Gwen was drinking heavily. Returning from America, Nora was cast in a George Gershwin musical, OK. The most famous song from the show was Someone to Watch Over Me.
There's a somebody I'm longing to see. I hope that she turns out to be someone who'll watch over me. I'm a little lamb who's lost in the wood. I know I could always be good to one who'll watch over me. Although she may not be the one some girls think of as handsome, to my heart she carries the key. Won't you tell her please to put on some speed, follow my lead, oh how I need someone to watch over me. Won't you tell her please to put on some speed, follow my lead, oh how I need someone to watch over me. Someone to watch over me.
After OK, Nora took a highly paid job in pantomime, playing principal boy Colin in Mother Goose at the Bradford Alhambra.
There's a good time coming, be it ever so far away. That's what they say to me, so says I, jolly good luck, hooray. There's been lots of trouble for a long time now, but every dog deserves his day, bow, wow, wow. There's a good time coming, be it ever so far away. That's what they say to me, so says I, jolly good luck, hooray.
Come on everyone, it's your turn. I think you should all sing along, and just to make it easier for you, we have slowed it down a little bit. Music, please! It's a good time coming, be it ever so far away. That's what I say to myself, says I, jolly good luck, hooray. There's a good time coming, be it ever so far away. That's what I say to myself, says I, jolly good luck, hooray. There's been lots of trouble for a long time now, but every dog deserves his day, bow, wow, wow. There's a good time coming, be it ever so far away. That's what I say to myself, says I, jolly good luck, hooray. Yay!
Nora carried on performing even though a painful blister on her toe had turned septic. In an emergency operation, she almost died. 3 days later, the surgeon who had saved her life proposed marriage. Gwen had always known that no matter how much they loved each other, she could never formally be Nora's legal partner. Nora retired from the stage and married Basil Hughes, moving to be with him in Bradford. Together they bought a large house, Woodlands. In February 2020, residents of Woodlands, Karen and Philip Jones, organised an event with Ali and Rosie. A local women's choir sang Nora's greatest hit, What'll I Do?
What'll I do when you are far away and I am blue? What'll I do? What'll I do when I don't want you? Kissing you. What'll I do? What'll I do? It just so far off to tell my troubles when I'm alone with all the dreams of you that won't come true. What'll I do? What'll I do when you are far away and I'm blue? What'll I do? What'll I do when I want you? Is kissing you. What'll I do? What'll I do? It just
Nora spent her first Christmas of married life not at home with Basil, but back in Chelsea at 217 King's Road with Gwen. Together they continued to make recordings, but the Second World War made it harder for them to see each other. Gwen died in 1944.
I'm dreaming dreams, those beautiful dreams that everyone
Nora and
dreams
Basil
about
Hughes moved to
love.
Cornwall.
So
In
I
1951,
take a gamble
Nora
and
wrote to a
see
BBC
what
producer.
fate had in
I see by my radio times that Gwen's and my voices are to be heard in your programme on the Light programme, These Radio Times, on Saturday, October the 6th. Perhaps the programme has already been recorded, in which case I am wasting my ink, to say nothing of your time. But just in case, may I? On the rare occasions when someone plays one of my records in Family Favourites or some such thing, I note with dismay that the most depressing and unflattering record is always put on, such as a cracked and squeaking period piece like It Ain't Gonna Rain No More, or myself bellowing What'll I Do, or worse still, Oh Mr. Porter. I wondered whether it would be possible to put a nicer record on. I have several in good condition. A very nice one, Maybe I'm Wrong Again. It was Gwen's favourite. I could send them to you immediately if you haven't got them in the BBC library. Though Nora was keen to keep alive the memory of her stage partnership with Gwen, she didn't rest on her laurels. She was always hugely energetic and got involved very actively in her local community when she lived in Bradford and in Cornwall. Now in her late 50s, she directed a show for what was billed as Britain's youngest professional theatre company, as well as productions for the newly formed St Austell Players. When her husband died, she soon set about writing letters with a view to reviving her professional acting career. It wasn't easy, and she had plenty of rejections, particularly from the BBC. But she persevered, and in her 60s, 70s and 80s she played parts on radio, television and film. She appeared on stage with the Royal Shakespeare Company and once again in the West End. Nora died in 1983 at the age of 90.
My thoughts go back to a heavenly time, the seasons of bliss we spent. Our hearts were filled with songs of romance, as of hand in hand we went, and sang to our heart's content. The song is ended and the melody lingers on. You and your song are gone, but the melody lingers on. The night was splendid and the melody seemed to say, summer will pass away, take your happiness while you may. Then the light of the moon, we sang a love song that ended too soon. The moon descended and I found with the break of dawn, you and your song had gone.